Welcome everybody to this filmed and live session of Pinchal's Garage. We're gonna try to do this again. If we get cut off, don't worry. I'm filming this as we are talking. So this is again trying to redo what we started yesterday, and we're gonna do the best we can. I'm using a little different procedure this time for filming tonight and for streaming, so I'm hoping this will work for everyone. So let's get to work. Number one, this is an AWP head. It has been hot tanked, cleaned, and fully disassembled. What does that mean? Well, that means it's a naked head. There's nothing in this head at all. There's no actual components installed besides, number one, you see on here are the studs for mounting the intake manifold. These studs out here on the head itself for mounting the valve cover. And if we turn this around, the exhaust manifold studs as well. These are super important to leave on here when you take them to a machine shop. That way, when the machine shop assembles everything, they don't get a chance or the opportunity to nick and scratch the actual head itself. Very, very important. The only one last piece that it's actually installed on this head are the stem guides or the valve guides. They're the metal inserts that go inside the actual head that pretty much guide the valve from going up and down. Okay? So why am I tearing? I'm going to show you guys this whole process is because when you're getting into the market of building a motor making over 300 horsepower, you have to factor in your head and your block, and that's what we're going to be doing here. Is going to be building everything from the top to the bottom with a full part list. A lot of you guys have been asking for this, so I'm giving you this part list today or tonight and filming it for you guys, okay? So before you even buy any parts for your head, we're going to turn this over. I'm going to put this rag on here because I don't like nicking anything. And we're going to show you that this head is super shiny, and the reason for this is because it's been decked. What does it mean by a decking? Well, that means that the head itself, they cut it to a perfectly machined surface. And the reason why you need this is, number one, the head gasket that goes on here will actually have a 100% beautiful seal. So that way you don't have a premature failure of your engine block or your engine, you know, that you're going to spend a couple grand on. Might as well do it right, and that way you don't have to do it twice. Number two that you see here, you'll see that the valve seats are all green. They're dyed green because what they do is they grind the seats down, so you have a perfectly nice shiny surface. And the reason why they dye them green is they dye them green until that green disappears where they grind down the seat. So the valve goes in there and sits beautifully. They only grind them enough so the dye goes away, so that surface is kind of like a machine surface, but it's grinded down using a very, very fine grinder, so they don't cut a lot of material off here, because if they do, the valve will sit too far down or won't seat properly. So that is pretty much the extent of seeing this portion here. Now we're going to go to actually assembling your head. Number one, you're going to put your valve right in here, and I'm going to show you guys a valve here in just a moment. So let's see here. There we go. And this is the valve we've been trying to show you for the past day. This valve right here is from SuperTech. This is an exhaust valve. The reason why I know it's an exhaust valve, number one, it's larger than the intake valve. So if you actually crammed it down the intake valve, it won't fit. It'll just sit right above, and it won't sit flush. But if you put it down the exhaust side, it goes all the way down and sits beautifully and flush to the head. So we know that intake and exhaust are two different sizes, number one. Number two, they'll sit beautifully flush if they're done correctly. Okay, so the reason why you have to upgrade your valves when you go over 300 horsepower, they get super hot, and factory valves just can't handle the heat, especially on the exhaust side. You want to make sure that the exhaust temps and valves kind of match up. So what happens with stock valves, they burn up, meaning that they'll end up not seating correctly, and then you'll have crazy exhaust leaks, and you'll just have a bunch of other problems, and the car will perform or not work properly. Perform poorly and just run like total crap. I mean, not about that life. Now we're using SuperTech valves, and the reason why I like going with SuperTech is because their valves, you can choose a variety of different valves where you can match them to match the factory mounting on here, so that way you don't have to machine the valves, the valve seats bigger, and you can use your factory valve springs, factory valve seats, and tools. Everything you can use OEM with this application. And the other nice thing about valves and the head will be good enough to 400 horsepower with no problems, and no problems causing any big issues. So big thumbs up to that. Now going back to the top of the head. Now what's super important when you guys put the heads together, do not have the machine shop polish the cam seats where the cam actually sits. You don't want that polished, you don't want it touched, because you're going to leave your cam stock. On these AWP heads, the stock cams are great for 400 horsepower, good flow. If you're trying to make more power than that, I highly recommend getting away from an AWP head and going to an older AEB head on the Audis and the Passats. Those heads flow a lot better, and they have bigger, way larger ports for intake and exhaust. Way better applications. Cheaper than this head, and it's an easy upgrade if you're trying to go over 400 horsepower on your block or your engine. So the next thing is, do not machine the cam mounts. Do not machine the cams. You can, if you do decide to have your cams polished, then I highly recommend having the machine shop give these a quick polish as well. That way when you put your cams on here, the surfaces are beautiful and mated correctly. If not, leave them alone, don't touch them. Just soak your cams in oil, leave them alone while they're sitting out for disassembly. You don't want them to start rusting. That's one of the big no-nos out there. Just soak them in oil, or just dump a bunch of assembly lube on it. It won't hurt them. The more assembly lube you have everywhere, the better, honestly. It'll keep your head and everything else intact beautifully. So definitely something you want to think about. All the cam caps can go back in order. So, which is important. Oh man. Hold on. Give me a second here, guys. Okay, we're back. Woo! Figured it out. Oh man, I'm back at it. All right. Okay, we're back. Okay, that's good. So, there's something wrong with one of the USB ports. Figured it out. We're back up and going. So let's keep working. So again, we talked about the cams. On your cams, you have to remember that everything on here is, how can I explain? Location specific. It's mated to one spot on the head. You cannot change its position. You cannot change its location. Everything goes where it's supposed to go, and it has its own home. Please remember that. It's extremely vital when you start building stuff. Never use a wire wheel. Never use sandpaper. Never use anything that will cause any type of scuff, gash, scratch, or anything to a machine surface. Now, that only applies on internal parts of a machine surface. External, meaning like the valve cover, you can pry on it and put a little bit of scratches in there. It's okay. Just be careful. I highly recommend just be very, very careful with it. It's one of those things. It's just not the smartest thing to do at all times, but you can do it. So now we're going to go with part numbers. These are super important, okay guys? So I know you guys really care about it, and I'm going to break it down again. For valves, again, it matters. I can't give you part numbers for valves just because it all depends on what you're doing. But I will give you part numbers that are very important. Number 1, stem seals. These guys. These little suckers here are super, super important. You get 20 of them in a pack. And these little seals that pretty much seal up the valve. They're kind of like a gasket for your valve. So this is pretty much what seals the oil that goes inside the head into your combustion chamber. This is all. This is it, man. There's nothing else out there that really does that. So this little piece is a lifesaver. Install them correctly. Take your time. There is a specific method for these. Number 1, you got to find a socket. I mean, like probably a 9 or an 8 millimeter deep socket that fits on this. You slap in your valve underneath. You put this on top, and you literally just follow it down, and you tap it into place. That's it. Do not try to pop these in without a valve inside. Okay? Because if not, they're going to go sideways, or they're not going to go in perfectly straight, and then you're going to have a leaky stem seal, and then you're going to have a lot of exhaust or oil going into the head, and guess what you're going to have to do? Take that head off and rebuild it again. It sucks, but you do it once, you do it right, and that's it. You do it wrong, you build it twice. Costs you twice as much. Simple as that. Okay, so the part number, and I only use OEM stem seals, which is Victor Wren's. This is one of the best brands out there. If you can get as many gaskets or seals made from this company, do it. Don't cheapen out. Do not buy Felpro. Felpro's just, honestly, I mean, it's good stuff if you don't care about your car. If you're just trying to build it and send it, by all means, cheapen out on it and go that route. I'm not going to hate you for it, but I am going to tell you, you bought the cheap stuff and you're going to just get what you pay for. Simple as that. So this part number for this stem seal is 12-31306-03. If you guys buy a head gasket kit, this typically comes with them, okay? Next part of your build for your head, and this is a very, very important part because these are not cheap. ARP bolts. This is a stud kit, and these bolts pretty much is what mates your head to your block. And this is a one-time purchase here. You never have to buy any more ever again if you do this, okay? Because these bolts are legitimately lifetime bolts. They're amazing. They will take a beating, and when you go into high horsepower applications, there's no other way to do bolts other than ARP, because number one, they don't stretch, they don't stress out under high heat, and they're meant to just hold extreme amount of horsepower or pressure. Especially when you're doing high horsepower, the head and block will expand due to pressure and the change in temperatures, radical changes in temperatures going in and out of that block. So this is what they're for. We got a stud kit, and you guys can see here these right here. Pretty much, you'll see it's just a straight bolt. This is like $170 in just bolts. It's crazy how expensive these things are, but again, these are one-time use bolts. You never have to buy them again. You can actually reuse them. So say if you take apart your head and you're like, oh, I want to do some extra modifications. All you gotta do is take the head apart, take the studs out, do whatever you need to do, put your studs back in, and redo the process. They give you nuts here. And what's crazy, this is something you guys gotta understand. These go into the block hand tightened. These actually do not get torqued down on your block. I don't know why. I don't know how it works. ARP does something magical with these bolts. You literally just go in there and you hand tighten the bolt, and you give it like a little tighten with an Allen, and that's it. You do nothing else with this bolt. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't understand it. I did it on my block, and it was just like, whoa. That's it. And my block has been holding for 2 years now with no issues. So the part number we use is 201-5001. All right, guys. Very, very important. This is the stud kit that we use from ARP. Now we got more gaskets and other parts to break down for the head. We're not done with the head yet. We actually haven't even opened this box, by the way. It's a brand new box of gaskets right here. So we're going to open it all up. Now keep in mind, we spent over $900 in just gaskets and seals and little things we need to get a motor put together. Which you guys got to understand, it's super important not to be cheap, because you will regret it 100%, because you will rebuild that engine again if it's not done right. So we got some lifters. This is a head gasket set. You guys can see that, and I'll break down the head gasket set for you. This is for the block. I'm not going to show you that. Let's see. This is for the block. For the block. Oil cap gasket. Oil coolers for the block. Chain. Okay, this right here for the head, very important. I'm giving you everything I have here for the head, so give me a moment, all right, guys? For the head, you might get double gaskets. It actually ends up happening twice. It's definitely an issue. Okay, this is for the block. Okay, so I'm giving you everything I have for the head first, alright? Number one, when rebuilding a high mileage head or block, always replace the cam chain tensioner. Extremely important. Right here. It's hydraulic. Okay, very, very important. This has to be replaced pretty much every 100,000 miles, 80 to 100,000 miles. So very, very important part. It's expensive, but believe me, it's worth every penny. This is one of the most important parts. Remember, cam chain tensioner. It's hydraulic, okay? Not the timing belt tensioner. Very different. So this is the first part here. We got this for like 150 bucks. The next one. This is actually the cam chain. This is, let's see, you can't even tell what brand this is. I forgot which, it's from Germany. It's hard to read it, but the part number that we got for this one is 50046857. This is actually the actual cam chain. You also need to replace this part. This is a very important part that has to be replaced because these do stretch. They do wear down. And again, whenever you're taking a high mileage motor apart, anything, this is a cheap $30 part, and it's just worth replacing in a heartbeat. Especially, like, again, building a high horsepower application, get as many new parts as possible. This is the oil cap gasket. Again, easy part to replace, easy item to leak a lot of oil. Actually, it's very common for this gasket to leak oil. 40-77-408-00. This is for your oil cap. Okay. Next one. These are lifters, and the reason why we have only 4, because these are the lifters actually that have the most problems on a 1.8T. And I'll show you which ones they are in just a moment here. But we were able to actually get OEM lifters from AutoZone, actually, which is very impressive because these are not cheap, but they're extremely vital. I remember in another video we did when we started rebuilding a head, we showed you guys a breakdown on something. And what it is that when you replace a lifter on an AWP, only one lifter you have to replace. Well, 4 you have to replace, but it's one of the most common 4 you have to replace. I'm going to turn this head around really quick. You guys can see this. Now, if you see here, yeah, just scratched my table. We're on the intake side. So when you're looking inside your engine bay, this is the side that you're going to see. This lifter is the middle one, right here. That lifter. Okay? This lifter, for some reason, gets the most wear out of all 3 lifters in that cylinder. Okay? So you'll see these 3. 9 out of 10 times, if you have an engine that has over, say, 130, 150,000 miles, that lifter has a divot in it. It's like pushed in the hardest. It has like a little, it's like concave. I have one over there to show you guys, but I can't take it out of the pile. It's just something that I unfortunately can't do because it's all in order and I don't want to touch anything over there. But this lifter, when rebuilding a head, just replace the 4. You don't need to replace any other ones. Just those 4, one out of each cylinder. Very, very important trick. I actually got that information from a machine shop. They say they never see any wear on all the other lifters besides that one. So, it's really interesting, and it's a cheap purchase. It'll put you back about $70, $80 for all 4. But it's definitely a peace of mind that you don't have to worry about. Alright, so very, very important. And this is, again, it's just the lifter. Alright, guys? The part number, I'll give that to you right now. Here it is. 068-540-8500. Okay? Hopefully that works out for you guys. Very, very important. Now we're going to go down to gaskets. April 9th. Okay. Now this brand is Ealing. It's hard to remember this brand. It's hard to pronounce. This is also another very expensive brand. Again, it's OEM quality. It's not like Felpro or the other cheaper stuff. If you guys like buying Felpro, by all means, go for it. I'm not going to stop you, but there's a difference in brands, in all honesty. The cool thing about this head gasket kit, it gives you everything you need to pretty much put together your head to seal up your head. Okay, I'm going to give you the part number first. Hopefully this helps. 905.860 is the part number. Okay, these are made in Germany. These are not cheap gaskets. This kit gives us number 1, stem seals, a valve cover gasket. I'm going to open it up since we're going to be using it. So they give you an exhaust manifold gasket, number 1. And this is a multi-layer steel gasket. It's super important that you get this style gasket for an exhaust manifold. Very, very important. Because they actually work and they actually do seal. The Felpro ones are actually like a solid piece of metal. They never hold up. They give you a downpipe and a turbo flange gasket. Very important. If you guys are keeping it stock. They actually gave us 2 intake manifold gaskets. So if anybody out there needs one, we got a spare. Oh, no. Oh, I can see why. Never mind. They're 2 different intake manifold gaskets. One's the small port, and one's the big port. Very, very cool. Very convenient. Let's see here. So, 2 cam seals right here. These are the actual cam seals for the cams on the head. So, very, very important. This is the hydraulic cam tensioner gasket. Very, very annoying gasket to put in. It's one of the most, I don't say the hardest, but the most annoying to install when putting a head together. Stem seals right here. And they actually give you a tool to get them lined up. Pretty cool. I like that. Now they give you here this little pretty yellowish gasket is called the Halfmoon Seal. It's the one that sits underneath the cam chain tensioner. They also gave you the what is it on the side of the head? The coolant flange seal, injector seal, O-rings, and I believe this one is for the coolant temp sensor. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is for the coolant temp. This green one right there. So very, very important, very cool. All comes in your gasket set. Valve cover gasket, and then the most important gasket out of this whole entire thing is the actual head gasket. And again, it's a multi-layer steel gasket. These are very, very vital, especially during your install. These gaskets are one-time use, and if they're not installed correctly and you don't have your head and your block decked, this will never seal 100%. It'll fail on you, I guarantee you. I actually promise you it will fail. Over time, obviously not soon, but it will fail sooner than later. So, very, very important. And one of my favorite things about getting expensive gasket kits is, number 1, they give you the torque sequence. They tell you what type of bolt your head uses. Number 1. Part number of the head gasket kit. And let's see what else is in here. They actually tell you how to clean it, which is super cool. And how to disassemble it. Let's see what else is here. Just a bunch of good information, just all in one little package. I love it. This kit set us back about 90 bucks. Not bad, not bad at all. This goes all back in here. So that's everything you need, okay guys, for pretty much putting together a head, a complete head. We will be filming and doing a full head assembly with you guys, okay, soon. So very important you guys know that. Once the rod bearings come in, we're going to show you all that as well. So that here, guys, is the first educational part. Now we're going to the block, the next very, very big important part of your DIY, of your part list, okay guys? So definitely pay attention, very close attention, because these are very important parts that are coming up next. Well, they're just as important as the other stuff, but important. Alright, we'll move this out of the way. Be right back. Alright, so the next part of our build here, we're going to lay them out for you. Thrust washers, bearings, stickers, bolts. I'm going to go back over here. We got gasket, piston rings, gasket, another gasket, seal, timing belt kit, which I'll put in there somehow in the picture. Just trying to get all these parts out of here. So many parts. Another piston ring set. Another O-ring. I think that's everything. Okay. Okay. Timing belt here. Water pump. Hydraulic tensioner. Idler pulley, or tensioner pulley, actually. All part of this. Okay. So pay very, very close attention to this, guys, because this is your bottom end. Let me go grab one more part. You obviously need a rod. That's pretty much it, yep. Okay. Alright, so too many parts are first world problems, right? Okay, so we're going to break it down we're going to start from the upside down on the block, because what people don't realize is that when you go from the top down, it doesn't make any sense. You got to go from the bottom up, okay? Number one, you need main bearings, okay? Main bearings are extremely vital to any build, because if they're not, number one, you're doing high horsepower, number one, Number two, if they're used or cheap, they're gonna fail on you, especially if you're gonna make some power. These are calico coatings, main bearings. We actually got matching rod bearings as well. That's actually not necessary, but it is something you can do. What you see here is a rod. This is an H-beam rod. It's a drop-in rod from Integrated Engineering. This rod here is meant for up to 600 horsepower for a 1.8T application. Very, very nice rod. Comes with ARP bolts. These are multiple use bolts, so not a big deal. Okay. This is a 19 millimeter wrist pin. This hole right here is 19 millimeters. That's why it's called a 19 millimeter wrist pin rod, because this is actually a true drop-in rod. These are balanced and pretty much made to be dropped into a motor and go. Okay. So you need bearings, you need for rods and for your crank. Okay, so I don't have the rod bearings here, so I can't give you that part number. But for the main bearings, there's CAL-5M1644H. Alright? Main crank bearings, alright? And remember, we're going from the bottom of the block to the top. So one thing that a lot of people miss or forget to do, and this is right here called the oil pump chain tensioner. Part number 06A115130. This is actually the chain, the tensioner that tightens the oil pump, which is super important because over time this gets a groove dug into it and it loses its tension, and guess what? You're going to have a sloppy oil pump and you might not have any oil pumping throughout your motor. This can starve your motor or cause premature failure, and you're done. You're going to pretty much grenade that motor, and that's the end of all that money. Okay? This little O-ring right here, part number 160-63100, is the O-ring to the oil pickup tube. Alright guys, oil pickup tube has to be replaced every time you pretty much unplug that tube. If not, what's going to happen is when you pop that tube out and pop it back in, it's going to leak, or it's not going to have enough pressure, and you're pretty much going to starve your motor of oil, and it's all because of this little tiny O-ring. Very, very important, very essential to your build. So now that we got rod bearings, main bearings, tensioner for the pump, O-ring, the next very important part, and I think it's probably the most important part actually of your build, is the crank bolt. And what people don't realize is the factory crank bolt is a stretch bolt, so you have to replace it every single time you pull it off the engine. Well, ARP has a solution. They have a forged ARP bolt for like 60 bucks. This sucker needs like 3 people to torque this thing down, huh, Ben? Remember me, you, and Pepe? Trying to tighten this bolt down? Yeah. I'm not kidding you. This goes down at like, I think, 45 or 75 foot-pounds, and then a full quarter turn. I guarantee you, you will not do this by yourself. You need about 3 people to do this. And a really long breaker bar and a lot of muscle. Crazy, crazy bolt, but super necessary for high horsepower applications due to the fact that the cam, or not the cam gear, the lower crank gear is not pressed in, and it's also only key guide held together. So this bolt pretty much puts a little bit more tension onto that crank gear. So when you spin up your engine and you have a lot of torque, you won't break that key guide and pretty much, again, grenade your engine. This is meant for up to about 400 horsepower. After that amount of power, if you're trying to go they can go up to 500, that's what I've read. After that, you have to do what they call a press-in gear, so it doesn't strip anymore and you have premature failures. This bolt is actually for the head. I forgot to mention this. This is actually the cam gear bolt. It's an upgraded ARP bolt. Does not stretch. Very, very important when you're doing your builds as well. Here we go. This one, a lot of people actually forget about this one because you have to take it off to disassemble your block 100%, and this is the oil cooler gasket. This gasket is actually what mates to the oil cooler housing. This gasket's like $1. Part number 634.380. This is a one-time use gasket, so every time you remove that oil cooler, you have to replace it. But when this gasket gets removed and the oil cooler comes out, that's where the housing, the actual main housing, I'm going to show you that one, because that one's important. It's a weird part. People forget about it. It's this part right here. This is what sits in front of the block. The oil cooler sits here. The gasket's still in here. Oh, I got oil dripping. But yeah, this gasket, again, it's a one-time use gasket. When you pull that oil cooler out, the reason why I have to tell you this, because this part right here only comes out with the oil cooler coming out. You have to pull the oil cooler off to get to the two bolts behind it. If you don't do that, you'll never get to these two bolts, and you'll never get this whole assembly off. This is also where your crankcase is at, where your lower crankcase breather hose comes out of. This has to come out, and the 4 bolts that you remove are one-time use bolts, so you will have to order new hardware for that as well. And there's also a gasket that goes on here. Very, very, very important gasket. Again, not reusable, one-time use. And I'm going to get you that part number right now. Let me clean my hands because they're actually pretty filthy now. Okay. The next gasket on your block is the the crankcase housing, oil cooler housing gasket. Part number 471.030. It's this little gasket. Super easy to look at. I mean, it's not a hard gasket to find. But it's actually, you cannot buy this at a normal auto parts store. You have to special order these due to the fact that they don't really come off a car very often unless you're rebuilding a motor. That's pretty much it. So, or you're replacing that gasket which leaked on you, which I have no idea how you did that. But again, very, very rare gasket. Not an easy gasket to get a hold of, but it's dirt cheap. I mean, it's like $5. So, very important, okay? So next one, let's see here. Since now we got that, we got this. When you put your main, forgot to mention this one. These are called thrust washers. These washers are one-time use. They are part of the crank, so when you lay the crank down, these have to go in there. Part number 026198421. These are just part of your crank assembly. They just line up in the center. They're actually in the middle. They actually go in the middle lobe on the crank. They actually have notches on the crank for them. Very, very important. But again, these go in. You never ever mess with them. They're just meant for the play, for left and right play of the actual crank. That's all it's for. Now we got the last, but 2 parts left. Actually, no, I'm sorry. 2 main parts left, but we also got another one. This is the rear main seal for the rear of the crank, right here. Very, very important gasket. Again, you have to replace this every single time you're going to rebuild a motor. Once done, they never leak. I honestly, if you get the right brand and done right once, they never ever leak. Very, very rare that this gasket leaks. And if it does, I mean, either number one, you installed it improperly, or that engine has 1,000,000 miles on it. So that's the crank, that's the rod. Now we have to go to the piston. I never buy any other brand other than, I don't know how to pronounce this, but I call it Goatsies. It's a hard name to pronounce. Part number 08-502-900-00. Okay? This is a full piston ring kit. Comes with a scraper, oil ring, and I believe I forgot the name of the second ring. But these are standard. They're not oversized at all. They're factory specification piston rings. We didn't oversize them because the nice thing about this engine, the block was legitimately perfect. All they did was hone it and give it a good honing, and the block wasn't even out of round. So we were lucky because that engine was well taken care of by me. So good engine. So we didn't have to oversize them. So you need 4 sets. These were about, like, I think, $60-70 a set. This is where our biggest cost came in to our engine build here for the gaskets and all that. We will show you how to gap your piston rings when we actually get to building the engine. So keep that in mind, guys. All right, very, very important. And the last part is obviously a timing belt kit. The timing belt kit, we got a water pump, okay, metal impeller. We got an idler pulley, which actually provides tension, but it's just an idler pulley, okay. We got a hydraulic tensioner right here for your timing belt, and a brand new timing belt. We went with the Continental OEM spec. A lot of people love going to the Gates Kevlar belts. I'm not a fan of those. Ever since my last motor actually gave me problems with that belt. Ever since I went to a factory style timing belt, I've had less problems with my engines. So I'm sticking with that. They run a lot less rough. The Gates belts, for some reason, just run a little rough for me. The idle a little harder, and I don't know, man. I'm not a fan of the Gates Kevlar belts. Definitely a fan of the standard OEM belts, especially with my build. I haven't had problems yet, so that just states how that's turning out. So that is it. The cost, again, we spent about $990 for everything that you see here, except for the stuff that came from Integrated Engineering. That was about $1,500. But all parts in total, again, to assemble your engine is about $2,500, guys. I'm not even kidding you. And that's taking our time shopping and looking for all these components. And we didn't cheapen out on anything. And the reason for that, we're keeping this car. My buddy Ian is keeping this car for a while. And you guys have got to understand, if you don't spend the right amount of money on parts, you're gonna have a premature failure, and all that money that you just spent is legitimately just gonna go to the garbage, and you're just gonna hate your life. You're definitely gonna hate that you cheapened out on something, honestly. So that's it, guys. If you guys have any questions, now is the time to start talking. I'm gonna stop filming right now, but it's now is the time to talk and chit chat. So what's going on, guys? You guys have any questions? I definitely want to talk to you guys tonight. I'm definitely open for conversation. So what's going on? Gonna move you guys back to my my normal location. Give me a second here. Hopefully that was informative and you guys enjoyed that. Oh Anything else, guys? You guys want to talk? I see the chat room's up. I'm ready to talk. I'm going to start putting stuff away while you guys have any questions. I definitely can help you tonight. Definitely open for conversation. You guys have any questions about the build at all? Any questions about any of the parts? I know you guys have questions. Don't be shy. I'm right here to talk to you guys. Come on. I'm just putting stuff away now since I opened everything up. Okay, well, I got a question for you guys. Was that informative? Did you guys enjoy the conversation we had tonight? The chat? Is that definitely going to help you guys out for future builds? Is there anything that I might have missed? Maybe anything I might have should have added to the video stream or anything like that? Please comment. I would like to hear you guys or read from you guys. Very curious about that. Box of parts, box of parts. I mean, you guys aren't talking. What's going on? I don't see you guys anything in the chat room. You guys are very quiet tonight. You guys are just a bunch of chatterboxes. What's up? Come on, guys, let's talk. If you guys don't want to talk, then we can call it a night. It's up to you guys. I'm here to help you guys out. Anything? I don't see any comments. Anything? Oh, you? Well, for me, I mean, I got nothing going on right now. I mean, besides what I've been doing with Filbert, cleaned up the engine bay, did a new respray on the engine bay and the motor and the valve cover and the intake manifold. I'm upgrading some of the bolts on the actual turbo, and that's pretty much it. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm actually waiting on right now is SolarWorks for the Corrado, because we're building another 1.18 in a little bit. We're building the 1.8 for the Corrado. Right now, that 1.8 in the background is for Ian's Mark IV. That's going to be a nice 350, 400 horsepower build. It's going to be definitely a fun little box. Yeah, I could definitely take care of a head for you, buddy. If you want me to rebuild it for you, I got no problems with that. I mean, or just get a whole block and we'll just rebuild an entire block, man. Why not? It'd be fun. Any ideas? Let's see, I've got 2 whole motors just sitting here. Well, once I'm done with that, once I'm done with the 3 motors I gotta build, bring it over and let's build you a freaking beast. Let's build a high compression VR. I would love to build a freaking high compression VR, all motor, like, you know, high power all motor, you know? Or we can build you a low compression turbo beast. It's up to you. I mean, a turboed VR is a lot easier to make power with, but a high compression VR, at least you'll have the VR exhaust note the entire time. Dude, that sounds so good. So good. I don't know, just some ideas. I think once the Corrado is done and given away, I think my next build is a VR. I think honestly I want to get into a VR or build a monster ALH TDI, one or the other. I mean, a VR is like, you know, a dime a dozen build, but a TDI, build a high horsepower TDI would be freaking dope. You know? I don't know. It's one of those things I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do for next year's like season, besides finish up my. And hopefully I'm trying to get some money to finish the Mark II and the Corrado. My Mark II is just sitting in that garage. I mean, it's got everything it needs. It's just no motor. It sucks. It really does suck. Oh man. Ooh, quick question. Do you guys wanna be live tomorrow when I finish my Mark IV? Finish putting it all back together and, you know, watch me put that turd back together? Ooh. I mean, free motor is always a free motor. I can't argue about a free motor. That's exciting. Ooh, excuse me, guys. So I guess I'll call it done tonight, and then we'll talk tomorrow and see what's going on tomorrow. Then, all right? Definitely, hopefully, you guys took something from this tonight about building your own 1.8T and knowing what parts to get and not to be cheap about your parts, because again, you go cheap once, you're gonna do it twice. You're gonna build it twice. So I learned my lesson a couple times ago. Now I don't. I'd rather just save my money and wait. Believe me. And yeah, the new my Trump bucks are coming up soon, so hopefully that's enough money to get my motor up and going, and we'll go from there. We'll see. Hopefully something happens. Right now, no spacers, unfortunately. The last set I had, I used it on the Outlander. So nothing right now currently. Sorry, buddy. Ooh, I just forgot. I'm gonna get a DIY. I'm gonna be doing a DIY on refinishing wheels. We're gonna learn how to restore some wheels. I got my Gaudis back there, so I finally gonna probably spend some time and a little bit of money and get those rebuilt myself. I'm going to learn how to rebuild some wheels by myself. So that's something interesting. All right, though. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. And for all you guys dedicated to watching, please, thank you. And I definitely appreciate all your comments. Figured out what the problem was today, so we'll get to keeping working with that later. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe and stay healthy. Keep that 6 foot rule. All right, 6 feet apart. Social distancing. I don't care. Just stay healthy and be good to each other. And as always, if you see another fellow dubber on the road, give him some deuces and thumbs up. Respect one another. And as always, here at Pinchal's Garage, we break, we fix, and we're going to repeat. Peace out, everyone. Much love.